They said I looked ridiculous, a boy, barely 18, in a suit 2 sizes too big, hands trembling, voice shaky, but eyes steady. They didn't see that part. Judge Reynolds chuckled when I walked in, didn't hide it, didn't care. He leaned back, folded his arms and said, "You're here to defend yourself, son. This isn't a school debate." The courtroom laughed. I didn't. I had fire in my chest. But I spoke soft. "Yes, Your Honor. I'll be representing myself." Laughter. Scoffs. Even my public defender sighed, grateful to be dismissed from a case he clearly thought was hopeless, because to them, I was just a kid, accused of felony theft. Facing 5 years, they said I hacked into a corporate server and rerouted money to myself, but they didn't care to ask why. They just saw numbers, binary codes, and a kid who barely had a high school diploma. But no one saw the long nights, the hunger, the eviction notice, my little sister with asthma and no meds, my mom cleaning toilets until midnight. They didn't know I taught myself code in libraries, watched lectures on cracked screens. They didn't care, because to them I was just another statistic, another poor boy who got smart and got greedy. But I wasn't greedy, I was desperate. "Do you have any legal experience?" the judge mocked. "Some," I replied. "I've read over 2,000 pages of case law in the past 3 months." The courtroom chuckled again. But I wasn't here to entertain. I was here to survive. My opening statement was simple. I am not denying what I did, but I am asking you to hear why I did it. The prosecutor rolled her eyes. But I kept going. I showed them my mother's hospital bills, the shut-off notices, photos of my sister's inhalers that ran out a week before. The crime. I didn't steal for greed, I said. I rerouted funds from a company that was already under federal investigation for tax fraud and wage theft. I took from the thieves to breathe, to eat. They objected. Irrelevant. But the judge let me speak. He was curious now. His smile had faded. Then I did something risky. I cross-examined the CEO of that same company, Mr. Donald Kerrigan, worth $40 million. He came in with a grin, thinking this would be easy, until I pulled up documents, receipts, emails, all obtained legally, through public records requests. "Mr. Kerrigan, is it true your company underpaid its employees by $2.7 million over 5 years?" He fumbled. Tried to redirect. "Objection sustained," the judge said. "Move on." I did. "Is it true that the funds I accessed were part of a shell account that was never reported to the IRS?" Irrelevant. But the judge leaned forward now. He was listening, really listening. By the end of day 1, they weren't laughing anymore. The judge called for recess, told me quietly, "You've done more prep than some attorneys I've seen. Don't get cocky, but impressive." That night, I didn't sleep. I rewrote my closing argument 3 times. My mom tried to stay up with me, but her body gave out before midnight. She was tired, like me. But I wasn't just fighting for myself. I was fighting for her, for my sister, for every kid with a brain, and no money, and I was just getting started. The courtroom was still, too still. You could hear the clerk breathing. The judge's smile had vanished. That smug, condescending curve that painted his face had been wiped clean by the echo of Tyler's last words. "I didn't come here to beg. I came to remind you who I am." And in that silence, the court was no longer in session. It was on. Edge Judge Halford leaned forward. "Mr. Banks," he said, "would you care to explain what that means?" Tyler didn't flinch, didn't stumble, didn't blink. He pulled out a small folder from his coat, not a legal brief, not some last-minute plea, just a manila folder that carried more truth than a courtroom could hold. Tyler handed it to his lawyer, who looked confused, then shocked, then silent. She walked it to the judge. Hand trembling, the judge opened it, and the courtroom changed. Not because of what he saw, but because of what he knew was coming. A name he knew, typed neatly at the top. Alan Banks. His jaw locked, his voice cracked, his grip tightened. Tyler didn't stop. "My father, That's him, the man you sentenced 18 years ago. You laughed then too, said he talks pretty for a crook. Sent him away. And he died there, alone. He paused. Let that silence sit, let it breathe. I was 6, I watched my mum cry every night for a year. Then she stopped crying and started drinking. She drank until her liver gave up before she did. I grew up in a system that didn't even spell my name right on the files. Group homes, shelters, some nights on the street, and every time someone asked what I wanted to be, I said a lawyer. Not because I loved the law, but because I wanted to stand where you sit and never become who you are. The gallery was frozen. The bailiff didn't move. The stenographer's fingers hovered mid-air. The judge leaned back, like he'd been struck. You're Alan Banks's son? I was, but I'm not just his. Son, I'm everything you didn't see, everything you ignored, every name you mocked, every file you skimmed over without reading between the lines. The prosecutor, stunned, cleared his throat. Your Honor, this is irrelevant. The facts, Tyler turned. Facts? He stepped forward, bold, unshaken. Let's talk facts. Fact. The officer who arrested me filed the report 2 hours before the alleged incident. Fact. The security footage from the gas station went missing until I subpoenaed the backups. Fact. The witness. Turns out he's facing charges himself, and those charges go away if he cooperates with the DA. But the biggest fact, you already decided I was guilty before I said a word, because I looked like my father, and you never forgave him for speaking back. You could hear gasps, the kind that feel like thunder, the kind that change verdicts before they're even given. The judge gripped his gavel like it was the only thing still solid. I didn't know. You didn't care. Tyler's voice cut, sharp, truthful, painful. You see a young man in a hoodie and you see a record. I see a mirror. I see the boy I was. The one who read law books in a shelter at midnight. The one who taught himself the Constitution because no one else would. He walked to the center, right in front of the bench. I built my life to prove one thing, that your power isn't permanent and your judgment isn't always justice. A moment passed, then another. Then the prosecutor stood, voice low, eyes wide. Your Honor, we request a recess. The judge nodded, not with authority, but with shame. He banged the gavel. Court will recess for 30 minutes. And then he stood, not proud, not powerful, just exposed. Tyler turned to the gallery and saw them, eyes that once mocked him, now in awe, faces that once dismissed him, now silent. Because the truth, it always echoes, even in rooms built. To silence it, 30 minutes. That's how long the court recessed, but in that half hour, a legacy unraveled, a reputation crumbled, and a silence, heavy like storm clouds, lingered over the courthouse. Tyler didn't leave the courtroom. He just stood there, in the aisle, still like a monument to truth. His lawyer whispered, "You didn't have to go that far." He looked at her, soft but solid. "I didn't come to win," he said. "I came to wake him up." She didn't respond, because there wasn't much to say when someone finally rises after being trampled for so long. The courtroom slowly refilled. People came back indifferent than they left, not because of what was said, but because of what they felt. The judge entered last, but this time, no smug smirk, no polished confidence, just a man haunted by a name. He sat down, not as a king on his throne, but as a man behind a mask, finally removed. "Court is back in session," he said, but even his voice sounded different. The prosecutor rose, looked rattled. "Your Honor, after reviewing the new evidence submitted by the defense," he cleared his throat, looked like he swallowed a stone. "The state moves to dismiss all charges against the defendant." You could hear it, that ripple of disbelief. Even the bailiff looked like he missed a step. The judge blinked once, twice, then slowly nodded. Motion granted, he said quietly. Mr. Banks, you are free to go. Tyler didn't smile, didn't cheer, didn't celebrate. He just exhaled, like a man who's been holding his breath for 18 years. His lawyer put a hand on his shoulder. He didn't flinch, didn't move. He turned to the gallery, to the people who had doubted him, feared him, dismissed him, and he gave them a truth they weren't ready for. I'm not angry, he said. I'm awake. They didn't know what to do with that. Some clapped, some stared, but all of them felt it. The judge spoke again, but softer now. Mr. Banks, he said. Tyler turned. Their eyes met. Judge Halford wasn't a judge anymore. He was just a man facing a mirror. I owe you an apology, he said. Tyler shook his head. No, he replied. You owe it to the next kid who doesn't have a folder. The judge lowered his gaze, and for the first time, he listened, truly listened. Outside the courthouse, the sky was overcast, but Tyler walked like the sun was shining just for him. His steps weren't loud, but they were final. Every footstep said, "You were wrong about me." Every breath said, "I'm more than your assumptions." Reporters crowded him, microphones flashing. Mr. Banks, how does it feel to be free? He paused, looked up at the clouds and smiled, not from joy, but from clarity. I've been free since the day I stopped letting this system define me, he said. One reporter asked, "What's next for you?" Tyler stared into the lens, dead center, and said, "I build something better." The end.